Today's episode of the Quinn Spinn is brought to you from The Russell, a historic East Nashville church transformed into a one-of-a-kind boutique hotel. The Russell's mission is to give back to the Nashville community through their Rooms for Rooms program by donating a portion of each stay to local nonprofits who are helping those experiencing homelessness. And of course, we're coming out of winter, but it was a cold one out there, and it's important this time of year, any time of year, to help those in need. So good on the Russell for stepping up for the community. Visit russellnashville.com to book your experience today. And by the way, this place is gorgeous. It's got this cool retro feel, and it's got this amazing podcast studio. So you can come in whenever you're in town, record a couple episodes, and go on your merry way and explore the city. russellnashville.com to learn more. Hey now, and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all, to a brand new edition of The Quinn Spinn. I'm your host, The Quinn. At least it's how I'm known here on the program, and at this point, really nowhere else. And I'm back here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more for another edition of the official podcast of Underground Music Collective. You just heard Revel 9's All It Become at the top of the show. That's been our opening theme song here at the Quinn Spinn since the great year of 2014, and it will be until the very end of days. And you'll notice I'm back here at the Russell, our wonderful temporary home here in East Nashville, for another rousing and riveting installment of the Quinn Spinn. And I'm very happy to be here for a solo mission. These solo missions are FaceTime between me and you, a chance for you to gain some insight into the life and times of a creative entrepreneur. And in this case, since it's me talking to you, that creative entrepreneur is me. I'm going to tell you what's going on here. And what's going on is a lot is going on. As a matter of fact, I just hit a milestone on March 10th. I turned 39. I entered the last year of my 30s. I actually turned 39 officially at 5:36 p.m. Central Time on March 10th. Buc-ee's in Royce City, Texas, on the way to Austin for South by Southwest, which was wonderful. Thanks, Buc-ee's, for hosting. However, I was a little disappointed you guys didn't have the giant cinnamon buns with the cream cheese icing. Like, I was kind of figuring on that all day, being my birthday cake, and y'all didn't have them. And I stopped at another Buc-ee's on the way back, and you didn't have them there either. So I don't know if it's a Texas Buc-ee's thing. I don't know if they're discontinued, but I am demanding, Buc-ee's, that you bring those back, because they're absolute calorie bombs, and you definitely can't eat them all the time. But like an occasion like that, I was jonesing. But other than that, my visit to your establishment in Royce City was wonderful. But anyway, 39, last year of my 30s. I turned 40 next year, and I was doing the math and semi-joking before the trip and before my birthday that average U.S. life expectancy is 78, and you divide that by 2, you get 39. So officially, by conventional U.S. life expectancy standards, on March 10th, I hit halftime, which is kind of freaky. Not going to lie. I don't feel that old. I'm told by most people I don't look that old. And right now I did trim this morning, so you can't see quite all the gray that you usually can coming in my beard. So, I'll roll with that. I can definitely pass, I guess, for a few years younger. But the fact is, your boy's getting a little long in the tooth. And there's a lot of life left to live, and hopefully, Lord willing, as they say, I have as much, if not more, time in front of me than I have behind me. But this is also causing me to, I think, act with a little more sense of urgency. And for the past 12 and a half, going on 13 years, my primary focus has been on, well, first the Quinn Spinn, because that's what's kicked this all off in my childhood bedroom back in 2013. Then Lehigh Valley Underground, and then Underground Music Collective, and everything that's come of it since. And definitely still going full speed ahead as I turn toward 40. But also it's raising larger questions for me as far as, I think in my younger day, certainly earlier in this process, like my life revolved around building this thing. And by and large, in a lot of ways, let's be real, it still does. But as I turn the corner and officially enter middle age, I start to think, how does this thing fit into the greater mosaic of my life? And how do I want to show up going forward? And what kind of life do I want to have? And I think back to a moment I had in Charlotte when I was in town in October for the Confluence Carolinas conference. I was getting ready to speak there. And I had a moment back at the hotel the first night. After a great first night at the conference, I go back to the hotel. there was a lot of stuff going on here that I decided to release because I needed to, and it was affecting my mood on that trip. And I came to that conclusion when I'm at the hotel and I'm having one of my talks in the mirror. And I realized, when I was getting ready to move here to Nashville, I wanted two things. I wanted to be able to wake up with purpose and do what I love every day. And I wanted to be able to show up to life however possible, whenever possible, for whomever I needed to show up for. And so here I am in this gorgeous downtown hotel, right? About to speak at this conference, therefore fulfilling the first part of the prophecy. And then after that, I was shooting up to New Jersey 9 hours on the Saturday morning after the conference to show up for my niece Amber for her Sweet 16. I got to be one of the 16 candles, and it was beautiful. And I'm glad I got to do that. And Amber, if you know me, you know that we're really close. And, she was, on her 9th birthday, said, hey, if you want to go move there, you should move there. You could do a lot of music stuff in Nashville, and that helped me feel better about it because she was the one person I was afraid to tell. Because when I moved out of my parents' house, when she was really little, and still have this image in my mind, burned in my mind of her laying face down on the porch swing crying. So I thought I was going to ruin the kid's birthday forever. And she's like, no, dude, go do your thing. I'd be happy for you. And so I realized in that moment, and just throughout that entire experience of that week and that weekend, I have the life I want. And now it's time to build on that life. And it's time to open up, build a stronger life container, a larger life container to be able to take on more things, more responsibilities. Of course, for me, it is important, a goal of mine. I still do want a family. I want a wife and children, and it's something that hasn't happened for me yet, And I think, my 30s have been a time of working through, I think, a lot of different layers, shedding a lot of layers, working through a lot of past trauma and things that didn't work out, and really figuring out who I am and how I need to show up properly and how I need to hold space in a relationship, how I need to show up as a reliable partner, as somebody that you can count on to be there, right? And I feel like in that respect, I've done a lot of really good work, and I'm ready to let that in. And it's something that I've been reflecting on, that's one thing I've been reflecting on, but also just this idea of how do we as men show up, right? In this modern age. Of course, y'all know the Manosphere documentary just came out, which Louis Theroux, I think his name is, did a fantastic job with that. And I think exposed and illuminated a lot of things about, digital culture around masculinity that just frankly, it was a long time coming. And I commend him for doing that work and doing it in such a measured way. It's something as a journalist that I, aspire to, that level of tact and measure, even in difficult situations and conversations and scenarios where you greatly disagree with the person across from you. I think it's a masterwork, and I commend Louis for that. And it's got me thinking too about, okay, how do we as men, and how do we as men in the music industry, in the creative space, in the digital space, show up to better impact those around us, right? And I am thinking about how I want to construct a platform around that. And I don't think the answer is to keep it completely contained within UMC, because when you're talking about things like relationships and modern masculinity and all that, UMC is not the place for it, right? I don't even know if the Quinn Spinn's the place for it. Obviously, this is my podcast and I can do what I want, but it might lead to something else. It might lead to something additional, of course, in addition to all this amazing work that we're doing at UMC, to have those conversations and hold those spaces. And I'm encouraged, by the way our digital landscape, our society is evolving, the way that we're asking tougher questions and demanding better answers now. I'm excited to be a part of that conversation, but I'm also, I think, a little hesitant, a little fearful. I think there are a lot of topics that, especially around dating and relationships, especially in my own life, that I've always hesitated to open up about, for fear of, I think, judgment and rejection. And those are things that I'm working through, it's always been, that particular area of my life has always been very much I've taken it very personally, and I'm learning not to do that. I'm learning to take things in stride, and I want to get more comfortable with the uncomfortable topics at this point in my life because I need to. And not only for the sake of building a platform, but for the sake of building better relationships, right? For the sake of finding that partner, and attracting that partner and building with them, the life can, having that be a part of this life container I'm talking about, it starts with me, and it starts with getting more comfortable with the things that I find uncomfortable. And, I was talking to a mentor about this the other night because, in that realm of my life in particular, as well as some professional things that have been going on that we don't have to get into on this episode right now, I was feeling kind of down. And it was the first time in a while I felt down because, as I've said ad nauseum, 2025 was the best year ever, and I had no reason to feel down. But I was, it's like growing pains, different levels, different devils, like I said at the start of the year. And I was trying to verbalize how, uncomfortable certain topics make me to even address in my own life. And we were able to pinpoint too, like just how that ends up playing out when you approach the things that you want, when you approach the relationships you want with fear and scarcity from that place, that bleeds through and people pick up on that. And that tends to lead you not to the result that you want. And he said something very profound to me that really stuck with me. And that I repeated multiple times after he said it. And he said, radiate who you are, not what you're afraid of. Easier said than done, of course, but it's something that I think we all need to put into practice. Who are you? What are your purest intentions? What do you want not only for your own life, but for the people you care about? And lead from that place. Lead from that place of abundance and love that comes inside, because underneath all the layers of conditioning and fear and scarcity and all the things that have been heaped on us as we travel this spinning space rock and experience different people with their own agendas, right? There's still that pure intention. There's still that voice inside of us that really wants the best for ourselves, for the people around us, that wants to build a healthy relationship, that wants to raise a healthy and loving family, that wants to create a better world and a better, an impact through what we do. And that's something that, as I now enter the second half kickoff just happened, that I want to put into practice more. And I want to practice that by communicating my own truth, not just in the business and creative realms, but in life. And so I'm thinking through that, and I realize it's going to be a process, and getting comfortable, and confident in those things, I think, is a process. And it leads me to just another exchange I had with a friend the other day. We were just checking in with each other, and, we were talking about how, when things aren't going your way, all you can do is focus on the day in front of you, make today go well. And that was something that a mantra that I adopted about 5 years ago when I was really struggling in 2021, right after taking the leap. Just make today go well. And then the next day and the next day, that's all you have to focus on every day is, what can I do today to stack these little wins and to keep moving forward? And then what does that look like the next day? And then the next, and then the next. And before you know it, you've built this momentum, and you're not so concerned about the things that were bogging you down. And she replied to that by saying, every day is all there is. And that was another thing, I think, another way of saying it, another way of framing it that really stuck with me, and something that I strive to keep in mind, and something that I think we all should strive to keep in mind. All we can do is focus on what's in front of us. All we can do is control our controllables, right? There's so much happening in the world that is out of our control. There's so many opinions and judgments happening out there that have nothing to do with us, that are projections from somebody else. And so by communicating our truth and living in that way, and living from our purest intentions and living from our values, we're doing right by ourselves, and we're doing right by the people around us, because we are living honestly, we're living fully and authentically. Any judgment, any rejection, any resentment, any projection that's going to come from that is the work of the other person and not of us, right? And all we can do is just keep showing up in the best way we know how. And if it works out and leads to favorable outcomes, do more of it. If it doesn't and it leads to unfavorable outcomes, then that's just testing, measuring, adjusting. Either way, it's all feedback. And it's feedback that we can implement into how we show up as we build a better life, as we build better relationships, and of course, better businesses and creative platforms. So I'm working through some ideas, as far as how I want to attack the composite of life within, this whole creative ecosystem I've created. I don't necessarily know UMC's the place for it. I think there's definitely a place for it here on the Quinn Spinn, but there might be some branching off happening. So I'm excited about that. As UMC continues to grow, of course, we're going to start crowdfunding for our own studio space pretty soon. So stay tuned. Just visited a potential location today. Going to see another one in a couple of days. That's really exciting. Some really cool possibilities popping up. Of course, the Underdogs did a great job down in Austin during South by. A lot to be excited about there. But there's also a lot of life to live and be excited about as well. And I'm excited to do that here in the second half. I ain't done yet. Just getting started. But this episode's done, and this has been the Quinn Spinn. 2 N's in Quinn, 2 N's in Spin. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Also on the socials at Quinn Spinn Official on Instagram and on Facebook, The Quinn Spinn. Again, 2 N's in both Quinn and Spin. That is our oldest social media channel, handle, whatever you want to call it, here in the Underground Music Collective sphere. Underground Music Collective is our central hub, of course, for all things independent music, creativity, community, and more. UMCworldwide.com has all the info you need on all the things that we're doing, including the Music Business Accelerator we're doing with the A&R Foundation, and also any studio updates to come. Stay tuned for those. You can also become an underdog and get in on the ground floor. Community.umcworldwide.com. And that's all I got for you today. So Revel 9's all I become. Gonna take us out like it brought us in. Grab some muffins on your way out.